Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you as always from the nation's capital and the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. They've got fantastic blends. My favorite, the medium morning roast blend. But check them all out, and you can get 10% off if you go to wired2fishcoffee.com. Use the promo code JustNews to get that discount. All right, we have some exclusive reporting about government censorship to bring you at the start of tonight's show. Memos obtained by Just the News show a nonprofit that received federal funding to develop censorship strategies boasted in its progress reports to its funder, the National Endowment for Democracy. Think about that. The National Endowment for Democracy was involved in censorship. That its early tactics had suppressed the reach of Donald Trump's messaging and reduced advertising by $100 million to news outlets it deemed to be disinformation spreaders, mostly conservative outlets. Now, the memo showed that the Global Disinformation Index was paid through grants, and those grants were given to them to develop strategies on how to fight perceived disinformation in foreign countries. But when it came to report to the National Endowment for Democracy in its quarterly reports, what it was doing, it focused instead to highlight the impact of censorship efforts on American targets and audiences like news sites and the Republican candidate for the 2024 election. Now, we'll have much more on this story throughout tonight's show, and as always, you can read more about it on justthenews.com. We'll be asking House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan just a little while about that. All right. Meanwhile, another day and another major court ruling, this time the Supreme Court deciding in President Trump's favor. This after the administration filed an emergency request to the court that asked it to reverse a Biden administration policy extending protections to hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans. And the court granted the Trump administration's request to revoke that protected status. We're going to Alan Dershowitz later in the story. He'll talk all about that and also the signals that the court is sending to this administration. All right, we've got a packed show tonight, so it's time to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head. Amanda, what's on your radar tonight?
Indeed, John, yes. We've got to get to the news of former President Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis. His office put out a statement yesterday that characterized the cancer as aggressive and explained that it had spread to his bones. Now, our prayers here at Just the News are with the former president and his family, and especially because on X, Biden wrote this morning, quote, "Cancer touches us all." He also thanked everyone for their love and support. However, this does raise questions as to how this wasn't caught sooner. He was the president of the United States, and many have already speculated that the former president and his medical team may have known about this diagnosis for months, even years, while he was in the White House and maybe even before that. So that also raises the question, did the American people have a right to know this? We will follow up on all of that later on in the show. And one more headline quickly for you. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a call today, with Trump saying that the call went very well as posting to his True Social account that Russia and Ukraine would start negotiating to end the war immediately. He also stated that Russia was looking to do a large-scale trade with the United States as well. All right, John, that wraps up mine. Let's get to it.
How about that? I would have thought that from these peace negotiations would be trade deals, but there could very well be. We'll see how that works out. All right, over the weekend, Sunday night at 10 o'clock, in fact, because I was covering it late in the evening Sunday night, the House Budget Committee gave a passage to President Trump's big, beautiful bill, the thing that encodes his legislative agenda. It was a major win for the president, major win for House Speaker. Now, it's not all in the clear yet. People still have to work out some differences and make sure there's enough cuts in here to keep the conservatives while not cutting too much to keep the liberals. One of the members who's been on the front lines of this is joining us now. He's Congressman Gabe Evans from the great state of Colorado. Congressman, good to have you on the show.
Good to be on with you. Thanks so much.
Big night last night, a big win for President Trump, getting the bill moved closer to the House floor for a final vote. Tell us where we are. Is there any clarity about what changes Mike Johnson, the Speaker, might have agreed to get the bill through the committee last night?
Yeah, I think some of those changes are still being finalized, but the important thing to note for this bill, particularly in states like mine, is this is, as you said, going to enshrine some key policies that not just the Trump administration wants, but that the American people want. Look at the Medicaid piece of this, for instance. My home state of Colorado is taking taxpayer money and they're giving it to illegal immigrants for health care. It's forecasted to cost the state of Colorado over $50 million just this year alone. And so what this bill does is it puts guardrails around states that subsidize payments to illegal immigrants using federal dollars and make sure that they stop doing that and that we are prioritizing the American people first. We're being good stewards of those taxpayer money, and we're pushing back against states like Colorado that are taking taxpayer money and giving it to illegal immigrants for health care.
Yeah, huge.
Speaking of illegal immigrants, there's a lot in there handling the border crisis, illegal immigrants who are already here in this country. Give us some of those highlights, please.
I mean, we've seen what's happening at our southern border, both as a compare and contrast from the previous administration, where you just had hordes of people coming across the border, versus what this new administration has been able to do just in the first couple of months, bringing crossings at the border to historic lows. And so, what this bill does, I sit on the Homeland Security Committee, which has oversight over the physical border. This bill directs tens of billions of dollars to border security, to better recruiting and retention for our Border Patrol officers, and to all of the technology that we need to be able to counter the new and emerging threats of not just drugs, but outright terrorist activities that are potentially threatening to come across our borders and into the United States. And so through the Homeland Security piece of this big, beautiful bill, we are doubling down on making sure that we protect the territorial integrity of the United States by appropriately resourcing the border wall, our brave men and women who keep us safe, and also the technology that we need to be able to interdict all of this bad stuff.
Yeah, long neglected under the Biden administration, now potentially a reality in just a few weeks if this bill gets passed. Congressman, I want to talk about the challenge with getting to the right spending cuts. Obviously, fiscal hawks want a lot more. Moderate Republicans in tough districts would like a little bit less. One of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I guess Congress could stipulate in this bill that President Trump, hey, the dollar figures we give you are floors, not ceilings, and if you don't need to spend it all to get Congress's job done, that's okay with us. Could that possibly get everybody together, that sort of concept, that language being flown into the bill?
I think we've already seen some of that stuff happen already. So the reconciliation process, you actually have to pass the bill twice.
Right.
The first time you pass the bill, you're setting those top line numbers about how much either cuts or spending is going to occur under those committees of jurisdiction. But then when you come through and you actually build the policies to meet those top line numbers, there's no mandate that you actually have to spend all of the money that you're allocated. And so some of the committees that were authorized to spend money, they didn't go all the way up to the maximum amount that they were allowed to spend, because as the fiscally responsible party, we were able to do the work to analyze the situation and figure out, for instance, in my committee, Homeland Security, we were authorized to spend up to $90 billion, but we're fiscally responsible, and we figured out we can get the job done and we don't have to spend up to $90 billion. So I think some of that's already occurring.
Yeah.
Congressman, I want to ask you about Colorado Democrats, because Democrats in 2025 are very different, I think, than what they were even 5 years ago. But your Democrats in Colorado, they are a rare breed. Talk to us about what they are trying to do with spending.
Well, look no further than the Medicaid debacle. Again, look at what Governor Newsom is doing in California. Look at Governor Walz in Minnesota. These radical far-left governors themselves are coming to the realization that it is inappropriate to take U.S. taxpayer dollars and to go put that money toward illegal immigrants, which deprives the people that actually deserve Medicaid. It deprives them of getting those resources. Colorado can't even come to that same conclusion. At a time when California and Minnesota are dialing back taxpayer payments to illegal immigrants, Colorado is doubling down on taking American and Colorado taxpayer money and using it to subsidize illegal immigrants. We've got to put a stop to it, because the folks in Colorado are sick of it, and it's actually harming pregnant women, it's harming kids, it's harming people with disabilities, it's harming the very population that Medicaid was designed to protect, when these resources don't go to them and they get cut in line by 1.4 million illegal immigrants, which is how many that this bill is going to kick off of Medicaid.
Yeah, ironically, they're hurting the very people that Democrats claim that they stand for, except they don't when this money is taken away from them. Really, really remarkable, the hypocrisy on that. So I want to turn to a second to an issue that touches on Homeland Security, which is in your oversight responsibilities. We had a memo this morning, the latest example of censorship that started inside of CISA, inside the Homeland Security Department, well documented. But now even the National Endowment for Democracies, which sounds like a good idea to advocate for democracy, they were giving out grants to censor opinions and political speech. And when the reports came back and said, this is what we accomplished, the funder or the grant recipients would brag, hey, we suppressed President Trump's speech or the reach of his message. We defunded conservative news organizations by $100 million in lost advertising. It seems as though this machine was far larger than we knew. What might Congress be able to do to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future?
I think part of this just goes back to the funding, making sure that we're actually taking a look at where the taxpayer dollars are going and how the taxpayer dollar is being used. And so just the information that you shared, this is the first step. You can't fight something if you can't identify it and quantify it. And so by identifying and quantifying these egregious abuses, then we're going to be better able to actually put guardrails in place around how the funding is used in these places, and then be able to go and conduct our oversight responsibility as Congress to make sure that future federal agencies don't try to slip in any forms of these oppression or outright censorship of conservative ideas.
Yeah.
Huge.
And you know, the word democracy is right there in the title, and yet they were so brazen about the effects of their spending and how it affected President Trump and conservative institutions. When it comes to the agencies or the institutions that did the censoring, I mean, we know what democracy means with respect to free speech. Is there a fundamental difference between what Democrats view democracy means and what Republicans think it means?
I mean, as a Republican, I can tell you what it means to me. It means representative government. It means that we are a country where anybody that wants to come to the United States, follow our rules, work hard, and earn their own version of the American dream, they have a level playing field to do that. And I guess to me, that's what it really boils down to. You have that level playing field where it seems like the liberals and the Democrats have no interest in level playing fields. They are focused on using the full weight of government at any level, federal, state, and local, and taxpayer money to be able to slant that playing field in the direction of whatever their preferred idea or viewpoint or organization is. And so for me as a Republican and a conservative, making sure that we protect and preserve that level playing field, to me, that's one of the core beliefs that I have. And I think that many of the folks on the left don't necessarily see that level playing field as a good thing. They want to pick and choose winners and losers.
Yeah, so we got about 30 seconds left. Real quickly, in your state, a prosecutor allowed an illegal immigrant, unlicensed driver who killed someone to go without prison. Your thoughts on that decision?
Absolutely horrible. This is part of the reason why I'm here in Congress. I was a police officer in the Denver metro area for 10 years, and I saw Colorado go from 31st in the nation, so better than the national average for our crime rate, to third most dangerous state in the nation. And it's a result of these far left defund the police and failed prosecutors who are literally protecting the bad guys and jeopardizing Americans in Colorado as a result of terrible situations like the one that you said there. It's an absolutely horrible.
Yeah, well, you've served your country in uniform on the streets of Colorado and now in Congress. We're really grateful for that service and grateful for your time today, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much. Always good to be on with you.
Yeah, great conversation. Really enjoyed it. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, the man who helped unravel the Russia collusion caper and so many other things. House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan's here to talk about the discovery of some new FBI documents and a whole lot more right after these messages. Hey, America, for decades, you've worked hard, paid your taxes, and stood by the values that built this great nation: honesty, accountability, and, of course, faith. But now you're seeing a government that's bloated, reckless, and in many cases, completely unaccountable. The good news, you're not imagining it, and you're not alone. President Trump is back in the White House, taking on unfair trade practices, fighting waste and fraud, and boldly reaffirming our Christian foundations. But even the strongest leaders need support from the people. That's why I recommend AMAC, the conservative alternative for Americans 50 and over who still believe in truth, transparency, and the Constitution. For just $16 a year, you'll receive the AMAC magazine, access to exclusive money-saving discounts, and become part of a community that's holding government accountable. Now go join today at amac.us/justnews. Again, that's amac.us/justnews. Facts matter, your voice matters, and with AMAC, they're both being heard.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. The Trump administration, in concert with Republicans in Congress, have been doing everything that they possibly can to peel back the curtain on the deep state here in Washington, D.C. And Just the News has been doing its part, too, exposing things like a memo from the Biden administration letting feds target regular Americans for what they called non-criminal behavior, like going to Catholic Mass or standing up against transgenderism in schools. Just the News also broke a story on a federally funded group working to censor President Trump and conservatives. But what more can Republicans on Capitol Hill do? Joining us now to talk about that, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for being here.
You bet, Amanda. Good to be with you guys.
Good to see you. I want to start with that memo from last week.
Yeah.
This lowered the threshold and set a new precedent for what effectively seemed to be investigating thought crime. Was that a prevailing attitude in the Biden administration?
Well, we shouldn't be surprised by this because, as you pointed out, this was the same administration that said if you're a mom and dad going to a school board meeting, we need to investigate you. If you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist. And maybe most importantly, this is the administration that tried to actually did set up and then had to stop it, the Disinformation Governance Board. You know, the people, as you said, the thought police telling you what you can say, what you can post, what you can tweet, what you can read. I mean, it's like frightening. And it was because of work like that you guys did, that many of us did, pointing out how ridiculous this was, how contrary to the First Amendment this really was, that they ended up stopping that. So we shouldn't be surprised at the latest piece of evidence that flows right in that same vein.
So I want to ask a little bit, you did so much work to document this censorship machinery. How much of it's been unraveled and what legislative fixes need to be put into the big, beautiful bill or elsewhere to make sure it never resurrects its dirty head again?
Well, I think a lot of it's been changed. And you can, people like you, good folks in the media who are highlighting it, work we did, certainly what Elon Musk did. I mean, I think his line was, I forget what it was, but I didn't spend $40 billion to buy Twitter. I spent $40 billion to save the First Amendment. And of course, President Trump's win last November, all that contributed to this. But remember what we uncovered. We finally got, Mark Zuckerberg wrote our committee a letter and said that, yeah, the Biden administration pressured us to censor. We did it. We're sorry. We're not going to do it anymore. And they've subsequently changed policies at Meta where they now go to that community notes approach, much like Twitter does, much like X does, with that Elon is incorporated in that company. So I think we've made tremendous progress. GARM is out of business. The Climate Action 100, all the big people have left that where they were trying to collude and censor and attack companies, all kinds of things that we think we've made a real change in. But we're still concerned about what's going on in Europe, and we're trying to have an impact there because European censorship efforts we think can actually impact on Americans and American companies. So we're looking at that this Congress.
That's important.
Mr. Chairman, John's story that came out this morning regarding the National Endowment for Democracy. Amazing that that's right there in the name. When it comes to censorship, does it feel like for the House, it's like playing whack-a-mole? Do you have to actually go after, maybe it's even an awareness issue. Do you have to find out and provide oversight for all of these different organizations and factions of the government that are censoring? Or do you even have to? Maybe it's a game, maybe it's a situation where the message gets sent.
Well, I think it's important we continue to do our oversight duties. I mean, not directly on point there, but one of the things we figured out over the last few weeks, and we actually talked about this last week, was this Pfizer working with the government. We're trying to figure out what kind of connection was there. But remember, back during COVID, you had the government and the people in the bureaucracy working closely with these pharmaceutical companies. But we know at Pfizer, we had 3 of the top research scientists. Dr. Dormitzer was the guy that's sort of been the focus, but they slowed the results down before the 2020 election of their results in studying the vaccine. And, the November 3rd was the election. November 7th, 2020, Joe Biden was named, declared the winner. November 8th, they announced the results. They waited till after the election, according to this guy who 4 years later, when President Trump wins in 2024, tells his then employer, hey, can you send me to Canada? I'm afraid they're going to investigate and find out we slowed down the results. So there's always this concern about big government working with the tech industry, working with the pharmaceutical industry, working with whatever to go after conservatives and mislead the American people. And our job is to do oversight on all that, and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, and you've done such great work. I mean, we learned so much just through your work. I want to turn to some surprises that we learned over the weekend from FBI Director Kash Patel, Deputy Director Dan Bongino. They found some more Russia collusion documents. It may have found some more January 6th documents. Can you give us some sense of what sort of information has been flowing from the Trump administration and what it gives new light upon?
Well, we're not ready to announce anything yet, but the one thing I always point out is literally, and I know you guys know this, it's night and day. I mean, literally night and day compared to the kind of response we got from Garland and Wray compared to what we get from Attorney General Bondi and Cash and Dan at the FBI. So they've given us access. We sent a subpoena 8, 9, 10 weeks ago early on, and they've given us all kinds of information that we're evaluating, we're looking at. And then the one thing relative to January 6th that we're really concerned about is these 26 confidential human sources. And we're working closely with them now. That's been a little harder to put together, but they're giving us that information because you got to be careful about the identity of the confidential human source and all. But there are some key questions we have. 26 of them were there on January 6th. 17 of those confidential human sources entered restricted space. 4 went in the Capitol. 2 of the 4 who went in the Capitol were actually asked to be there that day by the FBI. So we want to know how soon they went in the Capitol. Did they go in through a door? Anyone else? What information did they give you? How much had you been paying them? How long had they worked for the government? We want to know all kinds of questions about these individuals. Were any of these individuals as confidential human sources, any of their testimony used to prosecute American citizens? We'd like to know all that, and we're working closely with them, and we continue to get information on that subject.
That's huge. Let me just follow up real quickly. Do we have any sense of what the predicate, what the justification was to send so many informants to what was essentially a political event?
That's a great question, John, because that's scary in and of itself.
Yeah.
Oh, we want people there spying on Americans exercising their First Amendment liberties? That's not supposed to be how it works. I mean, what else was going on? What other kind of surveillance was going on? Was there facial recognition being used that particular day? We don't know any of those things, but we'd like to find out those concerns. And again, why 26 and why just a handful of them were specifically asked to be there? Why did you ask them to be there? Who were they supposedly informing on? Who were they spying on? Because confidential human sources is simply a fancy name for spy.
That's
so.
Right.
I think there's lots of questions we have, and we want to get the answers to them.
Mr. Chairman, before we let you go, typically passing out of budget committee means that it's going to be a successful full floor vote for President Trump's one big beautiful bill. What needs to happen in order for that one big beautiful bill ball to roll down the mountain and hit the floor with such fervor that it's a successful vote?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One, we have some of our good conservative friends who are working on, making sure we have real savings in here, additional savings in the bill. I think that's all good. Let's hope we get that in there. And then you also have some of our other members who are really focused on their constituents back home and this SALT tax and what that means for their constituents. So I get all that. What I think we really need to be doing, though, as Republicans, is talking about how good this bill is. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason Democrats hate it. Democrats hate it because it's all about Republican principles. We're the party that says cut taxes. We're the party that says secure the border. We're the party that says we should require work for able-bodied adults who are getting taxpayer money. This bill does all 3 of those. It says to the moms and dads out there, hey, we want to let you keep more of your money to spend on your kids and your grandkids, your goals and your dreams. That's Republican principle, fundamental principle. Money in this bill says we're going to make sure you have the resources, Trump administration, to continue to secure the border after what we went through with Joe Biden. Great principle, what the election was all about. And then, of course, this idea about requiring work for able-bodied adults, getting your money. Well, I mean, that's good for taxpayers. It treats them with respect. It's good for the economy. But most importantly, it's good for the person who's right now not being required. We all know the benefit of work and what that means in a person's life. These are 3 fundamental Republican principles. And instead of out there debating, oh, it doesn't really do this, it's not that. No, this is a great bill because it embraces the principles that we believe in as Americans and as Republicans, and we should go out and talk about those and get this thing passed.
Yeah, important. No doubt about it.
Congressman, thank you so much for being here, Chairman of the House Judiciary
Thanks for all your good
Committee.
work.
Thank you, Mr.
Take
Chairman.
care.
Yes, sir, absolutely. All right, coming up, President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, is going to be here to discuss how the president's one big beautiful bill is going to help with what he's doing in securing the border. Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. John had to step away to fire off an update on a story, but he's going to be back in the next segment. But while he's away, I have the pleasure to introduce one of the men leading the charge to protect America and secure our borders. He is President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, and he's here to discuss the president's one big, beautiful bill and how it will continue to help secure our borders if passed. Mr. Homan, thank you so much for being here with me, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, this one big, beautiful bill passed out of the Budget Committee. What all does it have in there that is helpful to you, and what is not in it that would be helpful to you?
Well, what's in it is what the money we need to finish the job we started, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to hire more Border Patrol agents. It's going to hire ICE agents, which we need both by the thousands. It's going to give them the pay raise they've been needing for years. These men and women put their lives on line for this country every day, and they're not paid commensurate with their responsibility and the threats they face every day. Yeah. But it's also going to build infrastructure on the border. It's going to put up more border walls. It's going to put up more smart technologies, just not between the ports of entry. It's going to add technology to the ports of entry so we can seize more drugs coming across. It's going to finish the smart wall. It's just not a wall. People think that we're building a wall. No, we built a smart wall. The technology within that wall, we know when someone's approaching it, someone's digging under it, someone's climbing it. It also has technologies to let agents communicate in areas of the border where it's difficult to communicate, so if they need to get help, they can get help. As far as ICE, it's going to add more ICE officers and help ICE continue with the removals at the record pace they're doing. ICE needs more beds. Every person we arrest or remove needs a bed. Right now we got about 50,000 in custody. We're only funded at like 34,000, so we're already over budget. But we don't need 50,000 beds. We need 100,000 beds to get to the point we need to get. So we got to practically triple the budget for ICE beds, which is the biggest part of ICE budget is detention. It's going to add more flights, so we're going to remove people to their home countries quicker. It's going to add more technology to ICE agents to help fine-tune the targeting of where to find people, public safety threats and national security threats that don't want to be found. It's going to allow ICE to hire more contracts. So badges and guns who enforce immigration law aren't sitting at a desk doing administrative work that can be done by a contractor. Every badge and gun needs to be on the street doing the job they should be doing rather than sitting at a desk processing or doing targeting or intelligence reports. So this is going to help ICE vastly improve the amount of illegal alien public safety arrests they make every day. So this is a great bill that we need to keep President Trump's promise to secure the border and to have the biggest deportation operation in the history of this nation.
Absolutely. Sir, the sad reality is that because of what happened under the Biden administration, this needed to be a historic level of funding for you and our border officials. When you saw that number, when you saw the allocation, did you smile or did you feel like, hey, we could actually use more?
I'm satisfied with the number. Certainly we could always use more, but you're right. And people say, well, this is an expensive historic bill. Well, you're damn right. We just went through 4 years of historic illegal immigration, where they released thousands of people on the terror watch list. They've 10.5 million Southwest border encounters, and that's what we know about.
Right.
That's not even talking about 2 million known gotaways or how many unknown gotaways do we cut. The Big Bend sector, for instance, there's zero technology there. 500 people can cross there in 24 hours. We wouldn't know it. So, yeah, because of historic illegal immigration crisis, unprecedented crisis on the border for 4 years, we need this money because now we got to have a historic deportation operation. And people say, well, that's a racist thing to say. That's a terrible thing to say. No, it isn't. On the heels of an historic illegal immigration for 4 years with 10.5 million encounters, well, we know based on immigration court data over the last 10 years, 9 out of 10 will end up with an order removal. So you can't come to the border and claim asylum and claim due process and claim the right to see a judge. And at the end of that process, when the judge orders you removed, you have to be removed. Because if that order isn't carried out, then due process means nothing. Might as well just shut down immigration court, take the border patrol off the border. There's no consequence. So yes, there's going to be a historic deportation operation. When you got millions of people coming across the border where 9 out of 10 get order removed, there's no other option. The only option is let them stay. If we're going to let them stay, you're never going to fix the problem. Might as well, like I say, take the border patrol off the border. There's no border security anymore. There's no consequences. So it's a free-for-all. So no, there has to be an historic deportation operation.
Absolutely. Sir, there are at least 1.4 million illegal immigrants who are going to be losing their, what I would argue to be illegal benefits. They've been gaming the system with waste, fraud, and abuse for decades. Is that going to end up being a big deterrent for illegal immigrants who might have considered coming here, the fact that they're not going to get a free ride now?
I hope so. I mean, American taxpayers, I mean, they're sitting in the back seat on this. So yeah, giving free benefits to illegal aliens is a driver. You know, when Joe Biden says, you know what, we're going to end catch and release. You can cross the border, you'll be released within 24 hours. We'll send you on a plane to a city of your choice for free. We'll put you in a hotel room for free. We'll give you 3 meals a day for free. We'll give you free medical care. And we'll give you work authorization in 120 days. The whole world's going to come to the greatest nation on earth with that type of giveaway program. And look, people say illegal aliens don't take advantage of social services. That's a bunch of crap. I've been around since 1984. I've arrested a lot of aliens with food stamp or a welfare card in their wallet. And one of the things they do when they give, they have U.S. citizen child. That U.S. citizen child qualifies for all the benefits. So another thing we can do on top of taking these benefits away from illegal aliens, we need to end birthright citizenship. That's another driver for illegal immigration, another driver for taking advantage of social services that U.S. taxpayers pay for and are going to need. The abuse of Social Security benefits by illegal aliens. You know, they come here and they make up a Social Security number and ruins people's identification. And you know, even happened to my wife, for God's sakes, when I was stationed in Dallas, Texas. I was trying to get trying to buy a house, get the credit report back, and there's several people using my wife's Social Security number. It took us months to fix that, and an expensive fix too, as it was. So look, illegal immigration, not a victimless crime. Not only is it victimizing aliens that die across that border, it's victimizing Americans who are dying from fentanyl. It victimizes Americans from identity theft and you losing benefits, social services that should go to taxpaying Americans.
When I was growing up and my parents were giving me tactics to combat peer pressure, they would say, blame it on us. Tell your friends that they're going to smell your breath when you come home. They'll be able to tell if you smoked or drank. I feel like there's something there for Democrat DAs across this country. Maybe there is a loud piece of their constituency who is fighting what you are doing, but maybe there are also phone calls happening behind the scenes saying, hey, Mr. Homan, can you give my city the Homan treatment? That way, you're my cover. Is that happening at all? I'm not going to ask you to name names.
It's happening every day. I got a request this morning. I got a request this morning. Please come back to Boston. Please come back to Chicago. We got more work to do in Rochester. Please come to Seattle. Because, I've been calling out sanctuary cities. They say I'm not welcome sanctuary cities. That's the first place I go. Mm-hmm. So people see us out there fighting sanctuary cities, and sanctuary cities that haven't gotten to yet are begging us to, please put us under a microscope. So I get those emails every day. I had to shut down my LinkedIn account because it's just inundated. But people are reaching out to the media, reaching out to the White House, press corps. They want ICE action in their communities too. And we're going to give it to them. We're staffing up teams right now. We're increasing the amount of teams nationwide, tenfold. We're going to flood the zone. So we'll get there sooner or later. So just stand by. We're coming.
Absolutely. The cavalry's coming, sir. It is such an honor having you here with us. Tom Homan, thanks for being here, sir.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We have much more coming up after this break, so stay with us. We'll be back on the other side. Welcome back, everybody. Our very own John Solomon has some incredible reporting over on justthenews.com, so go check it out on more government censorship, now including a group that received federal funding to develop censorship strategies, including, yes, trying to suppress President Trump and his messaging. So joining us now to give us his thoughts on all of this, as well as some big Supreme Court news, is one of America's greatest legal minds, Harvard Law professor emeritus, and the author of his newest book. It's got to be 100 books by now, Palestinianism, as well as The Preventive State, Alan Dershowitz. Sir, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Well, thank you. It's only 57 books, but I'm hoping...
That's so low, Alan. You need to step on the gas.
Trying my best. I know I'm late.
That is amazing. 57
Incredible.
books. That's
Wow.
crazy.
What
That's
an
amazing.
anthology. Sir, with respect to John's story, you know, we keep hearing this refrain coming from the Biden administration, whether it's that, whether it, what was his name, Elvis Chan over in San Francisco
FBI,
with the
right?
FBI and Hunter Biden laptop. Was there something, some legislation, some mechanism in the past before all of this happened that made certain people think that this is okay?
Well, look, there's no question that the Democrats started all this repression of civil liberties. They started the 65 Project, that went after lawyers who had represented Donald Trump. They went after Donald Trump for non-existent crimes and non-existent torts. Then they went after people, conservatives, who they tried to silence and censor. They went after religious groups. And now, of course, they're complaining that there's tit for tat from some Republicans. And, you know, I predicted early on that if the Democrats do this to Republicans, even though it might not be the best thing to happen, the Republicans are going to do it to the Democrats. I remember making a speech in Mar-a-Lago, President Trump was there, in which I said, please, Republicans, don't sink to the level the Democrats have sunk to. And let's eliminate lawfare and targeting and weaponization of the legal system and censorship and all these denials of civil liberties. But it's always so tempting to try to get back at the people who've done it to you. But that's not good for America.
Yeah, no, it's not. It doesn't solve the problem at all. The irony of this particular story is the National Endowment for Democracies was the grant giver. They give it to a group overseas who's supposed to be focused on foreign disinformation, and instead their memos when they come in every quarter are boasting about things that happened on U.S. soil. I want to focus on the second part. All right, repressing Donald Trump, get that part. They mention a $100 million reduction in advertising for news organizations. That seems to be outside the scope of any government power. What do you think is the possible? Are there any possible torts related to that, Ellen?
I think there are. I think there are legal remedies that can be made available if you can prove that you were damaged by, misuse of federal funding to bring about censorship and harm to your advertising. Look, for the marketplace of ideas to remain open, and that's the essence of the First Amendment, it has to be equally open to all sides. And there can't be pressures from either one side or both sides to limit the marketplace, only free speech for me, but not for thee. That's what everybody would prefer. I mean, deep down, everybody wants free speech for me, but not for thee. But you can't have it under the First Amendment. You can't have it with federal grants. You can't have it with money allocated to foreign influences and use it domestically in the United States. That's a clear violation of the spirit of the First Amendment.
Sir, the Supreme Court ruled today I think everybody except Ketanji Brown Jackson ruled in favor of the Trump administration on these some 350,000 Venezuelan illegal immigrants who were effectively given amnesty under Joe Biden, along with some Nicaraguans and Haitians and other nations. Does this give the Trump administration a green light for other similar people groups?
Well, I think what it says is that the Supreme Court is going to recognize that the executive, the president, has the power to decide who stays in the country and who goes. But they have to do it in the right way. They have to do it consistent with due process. And the cases in which the Supreme Court has turned the light from yellow to red instead of to green has been cases where there hasn't been any due process. On Friday and earlier last week, they also issued some opinions basically saying, you got to do it the right way. You got to make sure you have the right people. You have to make sure they're afforded their basic rights, but don't try to constrain the president and the executive from substantively determining who stays in the country and who doesn't stay in the country. That's an executive function, particularly when the legislature hasn't done anything. I mean, the legislature hasn't made decisions about this. Take, for example, the issue of birthright. If the legislature wanted to change birthright citizenship, it could do it by passing legislation that basically says that if a baby is born in the United States to illegal parents and stays only 2 weeks, the very fact that he was born here doesn't subject him to the jurisdiction of the United States. Congress could do that and could end some of the problems of birthright citizenship it could also end a lot of the other problems. But Congress has been sitting on its hands. And that's surprising because it's right now, both houses are under the control of the Republicans. We don't know how long that will last. There are midterm elections. There are also elections that take place periodically. So while the Republicans have the ability to do what sometimes the courts constrain the executive from doing, it should and can take actions that would make the job of the executive a lot easier, particularly on birthright and on the issue of national injunctions. It could do more about that as well. So I think the legislature is not doing its job.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in America feel that way, and they're surprised. I think they were thinking they were going to get change with this election, but it's been status quo mostly. Alan, we just got a minute left. Real quickly, you said something really important. I think a lot of people looked at last Friday's decision on the Alien Enemies Act and saying, oh, it's a fait accompli. Donald Trump's got nothing else he can do. But it does seem like the court is hinted and suggested if he just created a process system with judges, he could go back to do this. Is that the key for the administration?
I think that's right. I think the Supreme Court is sending a clear message. You can do it, just do it right. Yeah. And understand that due process doesn't have a singular meaning. It means the process that is due to you, depending on your status. If you're a citizen and they're trying to put you in jail, due process means, every conceivable right that human beings know. But if you're a student on a visa and you're here at the deference of the government, due process only means they have to give you an opportunity to disprove the allegations against you. Right. So it's minimal. So the Supreme Court's message is you can do it, executive. Just make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and the author of his new book, Preventative State, and that's 57 books. My goodness, Alan, fantastic job, and we love all 57 of them. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
For having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
all right, everybody, we're going to talk more about former President Biden's cancer diagnosis when we come back. Should the American people have known about it sooner? We'll talk about that after this.
Welcome back, America. So much medical news in the news these days, from President Biden's diagnosis of a very serious, aggressive prostate cancer to growing research and concerns about parasitic diseases in the United States. I thought we'd turn to one of our favorite experts. He's world-renowned Chief Scientific Officer at the wellness company, Dr. Peter McCullough. Doctor, good to have you back on.
Thank you.
All right, I think people are still processing the news we got yesterday afternoon. Joe Biden with a very serious form of prostate cancer, seems to have jumped to his bones. People wondering, is it possible the White House physician missed this, or was there a cover-up? What do you think?
It's very unusual to have the initial presentation be obstruction to urinary outflow, a prosthetic mass that's evaluable on a doctor exam and ultrasound, and then metastases to the bone. Now, we learned that it's Gleason grade 9, which is the highest, most aggressive form of prostate cancer. It's the highest grade. But it's distinctly unusual that it could move that quickly. His last medical exam was in February of 2024. And then in the summer of 2024, he has this neurocognitive assessment. And now here we are in May of 2025, and he's got metastatic prostate cancer.
Yeah. I spoke to a urologist earlier, and the timeline that he indicated for this Gleason score, as well as the metastasis to the bones, he indicated that was something that happens, 5 to 7 years down the road. Do you think that Joe Biden knew about this before he even entered the presidency?
He could have. The key is the blood PSA, and there are literature suggesting that the Gleason grade 9, the blood PSA, that number can double about every 3 months. So whatever his PSA now is, we could actually back calculate on when this cancer really took off. But it's sad to see. It's sad to see this at the president, that this wasn't intercepted early. Prostate cancer is very treatable before it metastasized to bone, and it still is treatable after bony metastases, and there's been great progress made in what's called ADT, androgen deprivation therapy.
Yeah, in fact, my dad was diagnosed identically with this He survived 17 years with it. The hormone treatments and this sort of new wave, very important way of fighting this, what used to be a death sentence, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I want to talk about something else that is in the news a lot more. In fact, I haven't seen it mentioned this much in a long time. A growing research, growing concern about parasitic diseases. There's Chagas disease. The World Health Organization just put out a statement about that. There are these new ticks that are coming across the mid-Atlantic that give off these parasites. We're seeing more and more of these infections. Why? What are the factors that are leading to this sort of growth in parasitic disease recognition?
They've always been there. The CDC calls these NPIs, or neglected parasitic infections, that they simply have been somewhat neglected in clinical medicine. The three most common are Giardia. We get that from drinking stream water and camping. Toxoplasmosis, we get exposed to that from cat litter, and the eggs are easily, in a sense, inhaled into the system. It doesn't really form a disease in the body unless we're immunocompromised, like having HIV. And then the third one is pinworms. And pinworms people get from, dirty toilet seats and in restaurant bathrooms. And so when these infections are contracted, a lot of times the doctors don't order ovum parasites assessment from the stool. Sometimes it's the organism simply can't be detected. And that's where we actually, in some cases, do an empiric parasite cleanse.
Okay, I got a twofer. Number one, how do you know if you have a parasite? And number two, every time I've heard people talk about a parasitic cleanse, they say, make sure you're home and make sure you are near, I'll use a classier term, make sure you're near a water closet. Is that the case with this one?
It depends on what type of parasitic infection, but let's just say something simple, like you went on a camping trip, you came home, had abdominal cramping, diarrhea, intermittent fevers, it wasn't going away. It's almost certainly Giardia. It could be diagnosed with a stool ova and parasite test, which is somewhat inconvenient to do, but it is certainly could be diagnosed. Or you could do an empiric parasite cleanse. Now, the modern way of doing it is with ivermectin and benzimidazole. It's very well tolerated. That itself won't cause diarrhea. But if there were serious tapeworm infection, for instance, when clearing out the parasites, sure, there can be diarrhea in doing so. But most of the time, the parasite cleanse is to rid the body of a low-level parasite and then just move on without any more worries.
Yeah. I had a friend, and I didn't know about the parasite cleanse sort of trend because it's becoming more popular. And he had several months of brain fog and frustration. He was very upset. And then he did a parasitic cleanse and like a complete reviving of his entire body. Parasitic infections can create a lot of side effects that are hard to tie to the infection, correct?
They are. We see some generalized symptoms. Weight loss is one. Yep. There was someone in my circles who had traveled to Central America, came back, abdominal cramping for months, and like about a 40-pound weight loss. I said, listen, that sounds very suspicious for a parasitic infection. Remember, travel is a big risk, and there's different parasites in different regions of the world. For instance, the leading cause of heart failure in Brazil, you mentioned it, John, it's Chagas disease. It's a parasite.
It's amazing.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but how do you know, other than brain fog and like upset stomach, is there a test you can do to find out if you have a parasite?
Yeah, the most common is actually a stool test for ova and parasites. On blood testing, we can measure antibody titers, for instance, to toxoplasmosis. Another hint on blood testing is elevated blood eosinophils. But this is a clinical diagnosis. The doctor and the patient kind of piece it together and ultimately come up with a tentative diagnosis. And the key is treatment. If patients are treated and they, as you pointed out, they feel better, we've confirmed they almost certainly had a parasitic infection.
And if you didn't have one and you did the cleanse, any danger to it?
Ivermectin and benzimidazole, very safe. Doctors at the wellness company will do some checks, make sure there's no problems with drug interactions or other anticipated toxicities. But no, fortunately, the treatment is very safe. And that's the reason why a lot of people, don't want to spend an exhaustive amount of effort on blood testing, antibodies, other confirmatory testing.
So
when the clinical picture is sufficiently solid, just go ahead and treat.
Yeah, so good. Folks, if you want to take advantage of that, twc.health/justnews, twc.health/justnews. Dr. Peter McCullough has a great solution there. We'll be back tomorrow night. Until then, God bless you. Have a great night.